Please welcome to the stage interviewer Moira Forbes, Executive Vice President, Forbes, with Nia Batts, co-founder, Detroit Blows, and Sophia Bush, co-founder, Detroit Blows.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow. What energy in this room. I am so excited to be here with all of you, and I'm so excited to be here with the ladies to my left, Nia Batts and Sophia Bush. They are names well known in Detroit, and if anyone has amazing hair in this room, in large part it is thanks to the business they created. They're the co-founder of a company called Detroit Blows, which isn't just a blow-dry salon bar, but it's one that really has been contributing to Detroit's comeback. It's founded with a purpose in mind, founded with a mission of inspiring and including women across all the different communities that they serve, but it's also built at its inception with a commitment to community. Giving back is fundamental to its core, giving back to women, giving back to the community. When Maggie talked about today's mission of wellness, this session exemplifies the holistic approach that's needed to nurture a community, but also to nurture and empower one another. So we'll hear more about the business. We'll hear more about the extraordinary impact in this community, but also some of the lessons learned along the way. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
So Nia, I'm going to start with you because you are a Detroit native. You left the city at age 18, built a career in media and entertainment industry. But when you're traveling back to Detroit, you saw an unmet need in this space, in this wellness and care space. And I was really struck because you had a great corporate job working in the media and entertainment industry. But you had this inkling, this desire to come back to Detroit. I read about a sign you had in your office at Viacom. It said, "Remember why you started." Share a little bit about not just your journey to take a leap to become an entrepreneur, but to come back to Detroit and do so in such a powerful way.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's so great to be home and to have everybody here. I mean, this is incredible. And just the commitment to the city and you guys being here just means so much. So I just wanted to say thank you to Forbes for being here in Detroit. I've been home for 2 years now, and it's been such an exciting and rewarding experience. And as you mentioned, I moved to New York when I was 18, worked in media and entertainment, and my background was in film, and I always knew that I wanted to find ways to tell stories. And I had an incredible opportunity to do that in the context of my role at Viacom for almost a decade. But what I would also find is in the work that I would do and coming back to Detroit, we had lots of partners here, and we're doing work in the city and in the community, is that there were new stories that I was exposed to every time. It really felt that for the first time in a while, and especially after the economic downturn, people were moving back home and they were starting businesses, and there was an entrepreneurial spirit here that I had not experienced having been so far away in New York. And our business partner, Katie, who's also our co-founder, she would tell you that I would land from New York with my hair probably in a top knot, like sweaty from some athletic class, and I would have to go into one of our partners and talk about how we needed to engage young employees in the workforce, how we wanted to make sure that we could keep those dollars in the community. And what I found I was doing is I was coming home and I was going to the suburbs and I was spending those dollars there, preparing for my meeting, coming back into the city, having that conversation with our partners, and I felt the hypocrisy in that. And it's interesting because, I come from media, entertainment, television, representation, and identity politics in many respects, and it really felt like we were underserving the community here in Detroit. And when we think about beauty, I think for us, it's inextricably linked with our activism. The three of us are activists at heart, and beauty for us really is a form of activism. And we knew that we wanted to create a space and an experience where people felt welcome, where all people felt welcome. And there's a really interesting thing that happens when you center people that have traditionally been marginalized in the conversation. They have the ability to create a more inclusive experience for everyone. And so that was very much kind of at the genesis of the business, and a conversation that I'd had with Katie, and then Soph was the first person that we began to speak to about it. And I don't know if you want to jump in and kind of that part of the story, but.
Well, it's like how you met, right? How did you guys first connect?
Oh, this was a long time ago. So we realized that we've been saying, 10 years ago we were at this very nerdy conference, before conferences were a thing like they are now. But we've been telling the 10-year story for many years.
I know.
So we don't know how many years it's been. But Nia will say that, we were in this very serious space, and there's tech founders and philanthropists and ocean scientists speaking, and she goes, "What is that girl from TV doing here taking notes?" And she came and made a joke to me afterwards about my copious note-taking, and I, because I'm just excited anywhere I can learn anything, said, "Oh, do you want me to make copies for you?"
And honestly, until this day, she's the exact same way, so incredibly curious about everything.
Well, and an instant friendship was born, and it's, been probably close to 15 years now. And because of Nia and Nia's family being kind of my surrogate family, and, in LA, my family being her surrogate family, when she was coming back and spending more and more time in Detroit, and her and Katie, you brought this business idea to Katie, who comes from a more executive background, and immediately was like, here's why this is going to be complicated. And then brought it to me, who comes from a let's burn the system down and rebuild it activist space. And I was like, obviously we're going to do this. Who cares if it's complicated? And for whatever reason, the mix of the three of us, each having a different sort of leading intention, I think has really helped it to work. And it's been important when we have conversations about representation, conversations about who spaces are for, that the two of us and Katie, who, while she is not here, if she were, you would know that Katie is biracial, as these three women who come from different experiences in the bodies that we walk around in the world in, for us to always be on the front line advocating next to and for each other is really important, because it shouldn't just be the responsibility of Nia to talk about why hair needs to be more accessible for everyone. I have to do that too. And it's special for us to have built something where we can all quite literally be together, where we can experience community, where we can take part in one of the largest industries in the world, and where by experiencing that industry together, we learn about each other. Because you see women sitting next to each other in our salon who historically have never sat next to each other in a salon before. And the things that they learn about each other, about their communities, the ways they can support each other, what happens when we invite all of our patrons in, when we have someone who's running for Congress come and speak, whatever it is, it's creating an intersectional awareness and community that for us is paramount.
You've brought this extraordinary depth of experiences and insights that's been this really defining force in your business. And Sophia, I would just want to follow up on what you talked about, because you're someone who has this sort of multi-hyphenate career title, right? You're an actor, director, producer, you now have a podcast. You've been such an outspoken activist against injustice and inequities. But all of you identified an inequity and an opportunity to really drive change and build community through business, through an entrepreneurial endeavor. You have many, many tools in your arsenal that you've used to be a change agent. Talk a little bit about why you chose to do so through business, through an entrepreneurial endeavor, and how this is different in terms of how you look to drive change versus the other ways in which you've championed issues.
Look, I think activism, I think spending your privilege in whatever way you have it, I think showing up and speaking up, I think voting. I also, if I may, for just one moment, I need everyone in the audience to do me a favor. I know everyone has a phone. I need you, and this is me, this isn't like some random person I'm telling you to text. If you text the word voter to 26797, it'll link you to an automated registration checker. Nia and I and a bunch of our friends are part of a collective called I Am a Voter, and I cannot tell you, well, it's probably not lost on the people in this room, how many people are being purged from voter rolls right now, especially in communities like this one, So if you text voter to 26797, you might be shocked to find out that you are not in fact registered to vote. So please, please check your registration. Like, we're not here to be fucked with any longer. So that's point number one. Voting is important, but we have to also understand that we act every single day. We vote with our dollars. And for us, it's incredible to be on the front lines of causes. It was incredible for me to work in the White House, obviously in the last administration, not the current. It is incredible for us to have access to the rooms we have access to and to be able to speak to people who are making change. But I think there's also an awakening that happens for women in particular, where you look around and you're kind of like, I support everybody else's thing, and I show up for everybody else's cause. But if not us, then who? Why shouldn't we do this? We spent so many years, me working obviously in media in the way I do, and Nia working as a media executive, we spent so many years being just pissed that we couldn't go get our hair done together. And then we were like, okay, so if we're mad, why don't we fix it? And it's a really important thing, I believe, for women and for people who are consciously minded in politics, economics, the systems that are at play in the world today, to choose to affect those systems. And it's one thing if we keep showing up and being philanthropic, but where are we cultivating business? There's a wild statistic, and the social science data around this is fascinating to me, that when women begin to accrue wealth, they are approached to donate. Women who become wealthy are approached to be philanthropists. I love philanthropy, I think it's important. But when men begin to accrue wealth, they are approached to be investors. So what that does is that compounds their wealth. That means that they invest in companies like Uber, who IPO, and they make more money, and great. Like, if I was a billionaire, I'd be writing mad checks to foundations. But I also want to be investing in businesses that compound wealth so that I am then creating generational wealth for women, because the disparity is a problem. And while we are in like scrappy startup mode, don't get me wrong, it's lovely to be covered by Forbes, thank you, but like we have a 2-year-old business, we're learning. We have a lot of work to do to get seats at the table for women, and not just seats at the business table for women who look like me. It's really, really important that we get in those rooms and that we don't leave. And we are really good at sitting and staying. We're like, oh look, we're here now, you can't get rid of us.
But I love that, because you speak so much to this intentionality, and I think sometimes there's a perception, at least initially, that to have huge impact, that you need to have a big wallet or you need to drive a huge movement. But we each have a voice. Every single day we're making decisions. The stores that we engage with, the customers that we engage with, all the different touch points along our voting, all these different ways in which we can have far more impact ourselves, but also what you guys represent when you do lock arms, the opportunity to really be such a transformative force. And Nia, I want to talk a little bit about how you guys have infused that into your business, because there's no shortage of conversations around aligning purpose with profits. But as I said earlier, you really hardwired that into the inception of your business, this intentionality of a portion of your revenue going back to different ways to engage female entrepreneurs and other community members and stakeholders. What have you learned in this process about infusing an entrepreneurial endeavor with this social impact? And what surprised you most in terms of either what worked or what was more challenging than you initially thought?
Yeah, I think in my corporate career, I come from it with the lens of like corporate social responsibility, right? So working with organizations to figure out, now that they're up and running massive organizations, what that looks like for them to have an impact. And it's very different to think about it from the very beginning. But as much as we thought about it, I think as much as it wasn't a consideration, it's just in our DNA. We knew that if we were going to, create a salon business and environment, that we wanted it to be non-toxic. That was really important to us. I think there's 1,300 ingredients in the EU that are banned from their cosmetics, and there's 30 that are banned here. And every day, as Soph was saying, we shop with our dollars, and for years we went into stores and we purchased products that were bad for us because we thought that someone was regulating them and that they were safe. And so we've done a tremendous disservice, I think, to consumers, and we knew that in that salon experience, it was also important for us to use it as an opportunity to educate our clients about what they're putting on their body. And I think that's also why we've become very passionate about product also, like as the business continues to evolve. And we also knew that businesses have a responsibility to communities and, the way that, that people do. And for us, we knew that we wanted to reinvest in women and in girls. When I was at Viacom, also one of the big partnerships I managed was with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so we're really big fans of the philanthropic reinvestment strategy of the multiplier effect. So we knew that investing in women and girls is really investing in their families and their communities and the ideas that they want to bring into the world, which is important. And so we have a philanthropic organization called Detroit Grows, and we think about it as philanthropic reinvestment. So we write grants, but for us, they're investments. We are invested in their business ideas. We are invested in the founders that are leading this organization. And so a portion of our revenue on the retail side and $1 from every blowout flow into Detroit Grows. And we make micro grants to female entrepreneurs. We make micro grants to workforce development programs, anyone that's working on eliminating barriers to entry for women getting into the workforce. And what becomes interesting on a micro level, and we're not writing $1 million check like I was able to do. Not yet. But it's interesting to see what you can do with $1,000, what you can do with $5,000, $10,000. These are amounts that really make an impactful difference, in people's lives and to help further the work that they're doing. But what you start to understand is that equity and power and money and all of these things flow together. So it's important for us to be supportive on the micro level, and it's also important for us to make sure that there are more women in all of the halls of power, and that means in government, so that's why we have to make sure that everyone is out there voting. It also means on corporate boards, on the boards of VCs, on the boards of PEs, where capital is flowing intentionally to people that look like the people that are giving it away.
The tables need to look very, very different across all quarters of power for real change to happen, because I think you both bring up the great point that these issues aren't in isolation, right? They are all connected and they perpetuate themselves, but we have the opportunity to change them. Sophia, I want to turn to you because, as I mentioned earlier, you're someone who has this very multifaceted career, and you've leveraged your influence and your experiences in so many different arenas to really complement and power a variety of different endeavors. How have you learned to better channel those experiences and insights from one arena into another endeavor to be a better or more impactful change agent? Because I think we all have experiences that we can bring to a cause or an issue or an opportunity, but sometimes we don't realize necessarily how easily or quickly they may translate, or how we can bridge those experiences to better create opportunities for others. Talk a little bit about your experience and what you've learned across so many different arenas.
Well, I think it's interesting, we're living in this era of the multi-hyphenate, right? Everyone's described as you just said, you gave me a whole bunch of titles, all of which are accurate. I'm an actor and a director and a producer and an entrepreneur and an activist, and cool, I should make a business card. I've never had one, but it would look great.
It would be very long one.
Someone was like, do you have a business card? I was like, no, I would like one, but I can't put my phone number on something until I put it on the internet, that is, which was actually sort of cool, but that's a separate conversation. The reason that I did that actually, and that I've, I think, done so many of the things the way I have, is because I try to be very conscientious about evolving with society and with technology. So now I can say, hey, do you want to talk politics? Here's a number you can text me on. I couldn't have done that 5 years ago. There wouldn't have been a platform that would allow me to do that in a way that was safe. 10 years ago, being a social activist was different than it was 50 years ago, and it's different than it is now. And I think it's really important to make sure you're constantly checking yourself and figuring out what you're about and what's motivating you. Because sadly, we live in a world that's telling us that money is God and success is measured in how much shit you have. And I don't know anybody who has a whole lot of shit who's really happy. I know people whose lives are easier because they can see a doctor whenever they want, they can travel when they feel like it, but again, social science data says that above a certain level of income, which the data says is $70,000 a year, anything more you make over that, you're no happier. It's about what you cultivate. And so I think it's really important for us to figure out what we're cultivating and what it is at the core of our motivation. And for us, it's always serving equality. For me, when I walk into a room, I make sure I walk in really, really educated on the topics being talked about, and I'm also always willing to keep my ears open and learn, because none of us knows everything, and the minute that we think we do, we're not only a danger to ourselves, but we're a danger to the people we're trying to help. And so, thank you. I think it's really important to fight from an educated perspective and also always be willing to learn. And that's been a constant experience for me. And the deeper that I get into all of these circles, the deeper that I dive into certain political issues, the more study I do, because that's my responsibility and it's also my privilege to be able to do so. And even with our business, you know, there's plenty of people who've always said, like, how many of us has heard it, where they're like, start a company, sell it, you'll be successful, then you can be philanthropic. Okay, because when I started my career, they were like, you have to pick. Do you want to be on TV or in movies? And I remember thinking, well, I watch TV shows and movies. This feels stupid. And like now Glenn Close is on TV, you know? Viola Davis is on TV. It's a different world. We have to be willing to evolve. And I think we always have to be willing to admit what we have left to learn. There's nothing wrong with realizing that you are powerful and that you don't know everything.
The amount of fluidity right now and the reduction in barriers to entry, at least in terms of being able to really engage in some of these things, is extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. Every single one of you in this room can do as many things as you want. You just have to remember to not try to do so many things at the same time that you're spread so thin that you sort of half-ass all of them, because that's a nightmare. But I think if you really get clear on what you want to do and grow your business and grow your hyphens as you grow yourself, you know, it's the reason that a year ago, in secret, I started working on this podcast idea, and I was like, yeah, I'm an actor and a director and a producer, and we have a business, but also I was a journalism major and I studied political science, and I want to go be an investigative journalist in the way that I can with this platform. It's the latest and deepest way that I can spend my privilege. I can give every single person who chooses to listen access to the wisdom of Gloria Steinem, access to the wisdom of these incredible thought leaders. And it's like, okay, I would like to be able to do that for people. Why not? Also, I want to sit and have a chat with Gloria Steinem for 2 hours. Who wouldn't? She's awesome.
No, but I think it's that depth of curiosity and learning is where real power can come, and being open to that learning. Sometimes as painful as it can be, or not knowing necessarily what the end game will look like. As we wrap up, in that vein, we have amazing people in the audience doing extraordinary things. Really quickly, I would love to rewind the clock to 2 years ago when you opened the doors to your business, just a few minutes away from here. What's one piece of advice that you wish you had known at that time, or that you had taken when you embarked on this endeavor? I'll start with you.
I think that in terms of how you spend your time, like people look at us and think that we're a salon. I think of us as being kind of a service-based startup. I mean, like, we're not a tech company, but we really run it like that. You know, the team is on Slack, and it operates very differently than other businesses. And I wish I had leaned into more of sort of that business kind of skill set. And instead, there were times when I think I allowed myself to be a little fearful, because the learning curve was very steep on a new business and a new industry. But overwhelmingly, what I think I found is that the investments that we make in our team, that really making sure that we can understand and see ways in which they can be reflected in our business, that they can develop a career where they want to stay there. I think we were at the beginning, mainly doing, blowouts and, some other forms of beauty services, but we've really evolved into this idea of, fair and equitable pricing, like non-toxic inclusive beauty, and really running a very flat organization that's incredibly collaborative. And I wish that, I think from the beginning, instead of being a little fearful about doing something new, that I had leaned in a little bit more into sort of listening to the team and thinking about how to make sure that this was a business that really was reflective of the team and also the community. And you learn along the way. It's, we're 2 years in now, and I mean, we have the most incredible, team members. Some of them I hope are here in the audience, and it really is because of them that we're energized to build the next phase of this business, and it feels very rewarding to do that in a more collaborative environment that's probably the one that, I grew up in corporate, just which has different set of rules and systems. So we've learned to be a bit more flexible with our leadership, and I think that's made the business more successful.
I love that. Sophia, what about you?
Something that was really striking to me recently, we were going over what our next phase is with someone who runs a big fund. And we talked in sort of a point of pride about, like, we did it super scrappy, we didn't even do we did friends and family, like, look at us, look how badass we are, girls out here crushing it. And he looked at us and just said, women do this. You underraise because you ask for less than you're worth because you want to prove that you're worth it. And he said, and as an ally, all I want to do is look at you and say, don't do that. Ask people like me for as much money as you need in the next round so you can build the next greatest beauty business, not so you can wear this badge of honor being like, look at how lean we are. And I just thought, oh, I feel so attacked, and thank you for the advice. Because he was right, and I just thought, there is just a weird reality where we've been so cultured in so many different ways by society to make ourselves small and malleable and helpful, and, we have the right to take up space. I think about this very revolutionary experience so many clients have when they come into our salon. We want to take up more of those spaces with that energy. So I think we have a very different mindset dialed in now when we go into our first real funding raise and we think about how we want to expand this business. Now I'm like, I want everybody's money. I want all of it. We want all your money. Write us the biggest checks you can. We're going to blow it out of the water. Let's go.
I love it. Well, I look forward to having you both take up more and more space, literally and figuratively. And thanks so much for your insights, for the amazing business that you've created, and the ways in which you've been such a formidable force in the communities that you serve. So thank you to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.